Hello everyone, I'm Hone, and it is Friday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. For the last several weeks, in preparation of the release of Guilds of Ravnica, which was fully spoiled earlier this week, I've been looking at each of the guilds that are going to be featured in this upcoming set. So far, I've done Boros, Izzet, Selesnya, and today I'm looking at Golgari. To be eligible for this list, a card had to be both black and green, the two colors of the Golgari. Before we get started, a quick reminder on how I score these. Pro Tour, Legacy Championship, and Vintage Championship top 8s are all worth 2 points, and a Grand Prix top 8 is worth 1 point. Now, on to number 10. At number 10, we have the first of 4 cards on this list with a Golgari watermark, and this one is Grizzly Salvage. The Golgari have always excelled at loading up the graveyard and taking advantage of it, and they'll be good at that in Guilds of Ravnica too, as we've seen. And Grizzly Salvage is another good example of that. Being able to pick one card and throw the rest in your graveyard is great if you have ways of taking advantage of your graveyard, which again, not hard to do in these colors. While it was in Standard, the Salvage was a great boon for Reanimator decks, which could use it to dig into a way to reanimate a creature and throw creatures into the yard that you wanted to reanimate. It was a big part of even making Reanimator decks a thing in the Standard of 2012 and 2013, and that's where it picked up all of its points, in those various Reanimator variants such as Plain Old Reanimator, Human Reanimator, and Junk Reanimator. It has never made the cut in Reanimator decks in other formats since there are even better ways of loading the graveyard in them, so its position on this list could be in jeopardy. At number 9, we have a creature with a watermark, but it's the Abzan one, and that is Rakshasa Death Dealer. The Death Dealer is a nice, efficient creature with the ability to get bigger and to regenerate, both of which can cause headaches for your opponent. As a result, it was played at a pretty decent rate while it was in Standard, primarily in Abzan decks, which already had an embarrassment of riches when it came to super efficient creatures. The Death Dealer has never broken into other formats, and it probably won't, so new Golgari cards may claim this spot in the near future. At number 8, we have a card with some pretty disgusting art, and fittingly so, since the card's name is Putrid Leach. Kind of like the Death Dealer, the Leach provides some pretty crazy stats for 2 mana, effectively being a 2 mana 4/4 that you pay 2 life for every turn. This was enough for it to find its way into aggressive decks in both Standard and Extended. In both, its home was pretty much exclusively Jund decks, and you're going to hear the word Jund a lot in this video. In Extended, it also saw play in Doran, the Siege Tower decks, along with Jund. It hasn't seen any play since Extended ended. Despite being legal in Modern, the Leech has never really seen play in that format's version of Jund. There are just better 2-drops around. And as a result, it hasn't really seen play in a long time. At number 7, we have the newest card to make the list, Winding Constrictor. The Constrictor sports solid stats for 2 mana, but its real value comes from its powerful ability to put additional +1/+1 counters on things. This worked particularly well in Standard of its time, because there were powerful creatures like Verdurous Gearhulk that became even nuttier when you had the Constrictor. It also helped that those decks all wanted to do some stuff with energy, since it also increased the number of energy counters you gain. The Constrictor was good enough to be the namesake of a powerful deck in Standard for a while, called Golgari Constrictor, and more recently it has been included in Sultai energy decks. It hasn't seen play outside of Standard yet, but if +1/+1 counters get more support in the future, I could see Winding Constrictor slithering its way into Modern. At number 6, we have the only card from the Golgari's original appearance in Ravnica to make the list, and that's Putrefy. Capable of destroying 2 different kinds of permanents, Putrefy provided efficiency and flexibility. It was also reprinted in Return to Ravnica, giving this great card 2 separate chances in Standard. In original Ravnica's block-constructed Pro Tour, Putrefy showed up in 4 of the top 8 decks. It also saw a fair bit of play in the old Extended format, finding its way into Dredgetog and various rock builds. In Standard, it saw the most play its second time through in various Jund decks. It also has 1 stray Modern Grand Prix top 8 in a Jund deck. Putrefy used to be one of the best removal spells one could play in a Jund deck, but power creep is a thing, and 2 cards that are higher up on this list make Putrefy look much less impressive. At number 5, we have a modal card, Golgari Charm, which makes us 5 for 5 on charms making the list for their respective guild. Like all the charms, the flexibility they provide is pretty nice, being able to weaken the whole board and kill a bunch of small creatures, destroy enchantments, or regenerate your whole board are all kind of mediocre options on their own for 2 mana, but when stapled together on one card, the card is going to find a way to get used. Charms can be especially nice in the sideboard since there is such finite space there. Golgari Charm hates on enchantment-heavy decks, decks playing board sweepers, and creature token decks, and it only takes up 1 slot. In some metagames, it has seen some mainboard play, such as in the Jund decks of Standard in 2014 and 2015, where between blue-white control running board sweepers, Selesnya aggro running small creatures, you could bet that one of the charm's 3 possibilities would be good in most games, so running a single copy mainboard wasn't a bad call. but most of its career in various formats has been as a great sideboard card. In Standard, it saw play in various Jund decks, as well as in Golgari aggro. In Modern, it comes out of the sideboard of both Junk and Jund decks. The flexible and relevant abilities of the charm have made it so good that it even plays well in Legacy, and that's really where it sees the most play today. Its abilities all have nice utility, and it is one of the few cheap ways around to take down True Name Nemesis, a creature running rampant in Legacy right now. It shows up the most frequently in the various Bug and Delver builds in the format. The charm's impressive capabilities out of the sideboard will help it continue to put up points and move up this list. At number 4, we have the oldest card to make this list, and by a pretty wide margin, and that is Pernicious Deed, which was printed back in 2001 in Apocalypse. Pernicious Deed is a nice little board sweeper. Sure, you have to let your opponent know it's going to happen in most cases, unless you play it and then pay X the same turn, but the fact that you get to decide where the cutoff is on converted mana cost is nice, meaning you can make this board sweeper work better for you than for your opponent in some cases. It wasn't much of a factor in Standard, but it did a lot in Extended. It helped enable mid-range black-green decks, what we call Golgari now, but what were called the Rock then, since it let you reset the board whenever you needed to while keeping your larger creatures alive. It also played a role in Allure and combo decks, where it could help buy you time. It also found its way into Dredge decks and the Enchantment Tutoring Enduring Ideal deck, where one of the best things to do after you pulled off the Ideal was to get the Deed and nuke the board before you started building up enchantments on your side of the battlefield. It had some pretty dominant showings in Extended, putting up 4 or more top 8s at Grand Prix Las Vegas in 2001, Pro Tour Houston in 2002, Pro Tour Valencia in 2007, and Grand Prix Philadelphia in 2008. The Deed was even good enough for Legacy, briefly being relevant enough there to end up in a deck partly named for it called Pernicious Landstill that essentially sought to slow the game to a screeching halt with the help of the Deed, which made people unwilling to commit more to the board, along with the other eponymous card, Standstill. Despite being relevant in Extended and in Legacy for a while, it hasn't really been relevant in a competitive format since 2014, and its position on this list could be in danger. At number 3, we have one of the most powerful removal spells in the game, one that pretty much made Putrefy obsolete, and that's Maelstrom Pulse. Having the flexibility to destroy any non-land permanent is already really great, but on top of that, it destroys any multiples your opponent might have. This power has made it a multi-format all-star. In Standard, Modern, and Extended, it has seen the most play, like a lot of cards on this list, in various Jund builds, with Modern being its most prolific format by far. In addition to Jund, it has seen play in Modern and Birthing Pod, Abzan, and most recently in Traverse Shadow and Lantern Control. In Legacy, it has managed some top 8s alongside Pernicious Deed and Pernicious Landstill decks, but its most popular home there is in Shardless Bug and Bug Delver. At number 2, we have a card so powerful it has been part of several banned and restricted announcements, and it is banned in multiple formats, and that's Deathrite Shaman. Like a lot of Golgari cards, Deathrite Shaman can turn graveyards into a source of fuel. In this case, the fuel can be used to ramp, slowly kill your opponent, or gain yourself some life. It made Jund decks in multiple formats incredibly powerful and was also great in any deck that loaded its graveyard, like various Reanimator strategies. In Modern, it made Jund decks so good that it eventually got the ban hammer in 2014, and in Legacy, it got banned earlier this year simply because it was played in too many decks, including 4-color control, various Delver and Threshold incarnations, and so on. As an example, at the last Legacy Grand Prix it was legal at, it was in 6 of the top 8 decks. Now that it's banned in both Modern and Legacy, its position on the list could be vulnerable, but it has a huge head start on any new cards that might be printed. And at number 1, we have another one of the most powerful removal spells in the game because, hey, why not give the Golgari 2 of them? And that's Abrupt Decay. Sure, unlike the Pulse, the non-land permanents it can destroy are restricted to converted mana cost 3 or less. But guess what? In Constructed, most decks run a ton of cards that can be decayed. The fact it can't be countered on top of that is great, as having your removal spells countered is never fun, and you never have to worry about that here. Like Deathrite Shaman and Maelstrom Pulse, Abrupt Decay has seen play in just about every format. In Standard, it's had play in Jund and Devotion to Golgari. In Modern, it has seen play in basically all the same decks Maelstrom Pulse has been successful in. Jund, Dredge, Birthing Pod, Abzan, and more recently, Lantern Control and Traverse Shadow. In Legacy, it has also seen play in Jund, along with Shardless Bug, Dredge, various Delver decks, and so on. Basically, in Legacy, if your deck has black-green in it, you're probably playing some Abrupt Decays. In Vintage, it has seen play in various Bug builds and Oath of Druid, and most recently in 4-color Leovold. It is hard to imagine that a Golgari card will ever be printed that can overtake Abrupt Decay. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future MTG Top 10s, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you get a notification every time I upload new content. Thanks for watching.